Michele Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. Today we have a very special guest. His name is Dr. James Stoxen, and he has a little moniker called chiropractor to the stars. Well, he treats everybody, but he's very, very selective, and he treats people who he thinks that he can heal or help to heal with their help, of course, because it's about heal thyself. However, James is a catalyst for that healing, and he's truly, the word chiropractor makes a rather limited definition of what he does. So I'm going to let him tell us more about that today. But in the meantime, I want to give you a little bit of background about how James and I met. So about 13 years ago, we were at the American Academy of Anti-Aging in Chicago. And there was this wonderful speech by Dr. James Stoxen, and I just loved it. And I was walking out of the room, and I saw him sitting in the back of the room, and I sat down next to him and told him that I thought it was an incredible lecture. And that began a 13-year friendship that continues today, and with many times that we have spent together brainstorming about health and wellness. And also, quite interestingly, I invited him to come to Aspen, where I was living at the time, thinking that he would treat me for 2 hours at my home. Well, that 2 hours turned into 2 days. So I guess you know that I needed some help from Dr. Stoxen, but what a difference that made, and what an amazing treatment he gives. So this is a man who works very, very hard for his clients. He really does care. And he redefines the whole meaning of heal thyself, because the Hippocrates, if you can do no good, do no harm. He does all good, and there are so many people that give testimony to his treatment. So I'm going to let him tell us a little bit more about who he is, how he got to where he is today, and what his vision for the future is. So James, welcome, and please take over and tell us a bit about your journey.
Okay, well, I don't know. It's such a complicated whole story. It's so convoluted, but I don't know. I actually, when I was in chiropractic college, I really wanted to get out quickly, so I went on an accelerated program and took 26 credits a semester in the summer, and I got out in 3.5 years instead of 5. So I graduated at 24 years of age as a licensed doctor, and that's kind of the way it's been on that fast track ever since. So, things have progressed over the years, and, I just, I kind of look at my career, and it's hard for me to believe all the people that I've met and the things that I have done. I never would have guessed, nobody gets in doctor to 1,000 celebrities and their handlers, and nobody expects to be backstage working for Aerosmith and Mariah Carey and Beyonce and people that you grow up with as a youth, just hoping to get in the first row, and then you are actually getting paid pretty well to, chit chat with them while you're fixing their shoulder or their knee or their foot. So I've been blessed, but of course you're right. It's a lot of hard work. And even at age 57 now, I'm still working even harder than I did when I was young. So maybe you can kind of qualify what you want me to talk about.
Right. Well, I'm looking behind you, and I think our viewers can see behind you at your wall. So tell us what that wall represents, James.
Well, for years, what happened was about 2002, I got a call from a lady in New York, and she said, "Hey, would you go down and work for Michael Bolton at the Rialto Theater?" And I said, "Okay, how does this work?" She said, "You show up, tell them you're Dr. Stoxen. They'll give you a backstage pass, and then you're going to work for the people in the tour. And I heard a lot about you, so on and so forth." So that was the first time, my first entree into the big time entertainment. I worked in Broadway, and I worked, of course, as a sports doctor for maybe 60 or 70 national world championships, maybe 500 national world champions before I got into entertainment. What this is that I used to keep the backstage passes for memories, and I had them in a Tupperware, container. And then I'm going through IKEA and I see this little frame, and I said, well, that looks perfect. And for $1.99, I picked up these frames, and there they are. That's my kind of collection of backstage passes. And so there, you've got, like for instance, that one is Dolly Parton there. And then you've got American Idols, 2008, 2009. And here is Dancing with the Stars right here. And that one's Aerosmith, another Aerosmith, Mariah Carey, Alicia Keys, Backstreet Boys, Kenny Chesney, Celtic Tiger, which is Michael Flatley, Marilyn Manson. The orange one right there is New Kids on the Block, and there's Britney Spears up here. And all of them are there's Beyonce next door to her. And then there's all these stories that come from these different tours, which are quite interesting. Up here is Bette Midler. And, so that's just in my office, I have your certificates of achievement, then you have your lecture certificates. And then we have this wall, and this is just my own personal space, which I do my research in. It just feels good. They're colorful. It's nice. For me, it's memories, that's what it's about, my memories, not anyone else's, you know what I mean?
Well, if you are, which it seems like you are, able to speak about these celebrity clients without any issues, why don't you share with us the most challenging experience you've had in healing a celebrity client? And if you don't want to mention a name, that's okay, but just tell us what you faced and how you diagnosed and then how you cured.
Well, I could talk about Anthony Field from the Wiggles because he wrote a book about it, and it's obviously public. Plus, he went after he wrote the book about how I saved him from his multiple problems. He went on ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, CNN, Today Show. And so basically what happened was I got called down to the Allstate Arena by the tour manager, Dave Brown. And he said, hey, we've got a big problem here. Could you help us out? And at that point, I was greeted by Anthony, who had actually walked up to me with an Australian coffee. He looked like he was in a great mood. And he said, hey, welcome to the tour. But, I don't like to waste a lot of time. So he had his shoes off and he was barefooted, which is kind of weird, but he's Australian. But on the way to me, I had already analyzed his gait pattern. And before we even got started, just on his gait pattern, I knew everything that was wrong with him. I've developed this skill after examining gait patterns, that the pattern of the gait, the flaws in the gait will match perfectly where the actual tension, the hypertension of the frame will be. And then that pattern will tell you exactly what conditions the patient has, or what they're going to have, or what they're susceptible to. Mm-hmm. Some patients don't even know they have like shin splints, but then when you see this pattern, when they bang into the ground and twist off the ground, that there's got to be shin splints there. So you say, you have shin splints too, and they say no. You barely touch the shin and they jump off the table. So I had him analyzed before we even started, and he said, doctor, would you put your table by the stage, because I'm going to have you give me a crack, like a chiropractor. I guess he's been chiropractors before. And then I'll go do the show. And then in the middle of the show, my back will seize up on me and I'll run off the stage again. You're going to give me another crack. And then after the show, I'm going to give him another crack. And then before the evening show is a matinee, 2 shows a day.
Right.
Before the second show, I'm going to give him another crack, and then wait around backstage when he runs off the stage with the back pain again for another crack. And before I go, I give him another crack. I'm like, it's insane. I said, I'm going to help you, but it's certainly not going to be like that. And I looked at him and he looked at me and I said, he's about to throw me out. And he said, well, I know it works. And I said, well, so do I, maybe a little more than you. Okay. So
well, before you,
I tried to.
can I interrupt 1 second?
Yeah.
James, before you continue, let's just say who Anthony Field is, because some people may not know he was the lead singer of the Wiggles, which was a phenomenon.
The founder of the Wiggles, which at that time they were making about 50 million a year. In fact, like 3 weeks after they were in Chicago, they sold out Madison Square Garden for 14 shows in 1 week.
Wow.
They did 2 shows, Madison Square Garden, 2, and 3 on a Friday, and then they took off for Australia.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Water and Wellness. Water and Wellness is one of the best companies to find purified water. They have a countertop system that I use and I travel with it all the time. So I would highly recommend you look at that. If you use the Ageless code, you'll get a 10% discount. waterandwellness.com/pages/Ageless and Timeless. That's how you can order to get the discount. So visit waterandwellness.com or call 877-296-6880 to learn how to take control of your drinking water and learn about all those natural additives to optimize your health and longevity.
But they were doing sold out shows. They were on Disney Channel 8 times a day. So at that time, like Shaq was bringing their kids to the Wiggles. Seinfeld brought his kids to the Wiggles. All these big stars were backstage to see the Wiggles. The kids loved them, and the parents love them too. They're funny guys, and they have a network TV show that's on like 100 countries. So obviously they do real well.
So you had to re-educate Anthony about what treatment was going to work. So the efficacy of your treatment was foreign to him. He was used to the traditional chiropractic cracking, as you said.
Right.
So what exactly did you do in a couple of sentences to change his paradigm and to get him to believe what you were doing was the right direction and strategy for him?
Well, the first thing that lit him up was that I told him that he had like right arch pain, right knee pain cracking, and then he had back pain, and I never even examined him yet. So that was like,
you could tell that by just the way he walked.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Fact,
got it.
I was invited to lecture at the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons in London, England. And the attachment in the back of a Mac that communicates with the VGA monitor, I didn't have that. It was 8:00 in the morning, and I'm flipping out like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I pulled an audience member out. This is like 500 doctors at the Royal College, right? And I watched him walk, and I pinpointed everything that was wrong with him by his walk. And they said, how did you do that? And then they asked me to do it again. And I was 100% accurate on 4 people in a row. And then I taught them how I do it. And then after I left, I had just worked for Steely Dan until like 2:00 in the morning, 3 days in a row. I hit a red eye into London, so I was completely wasted, tired. And I just wanted to get out of that auditorium and take a breath. About 100 doctors followed me out into the courtyard asking me to watch them walk. I was like, oh my God, I can't get a break here, So that was like, then people started to notice, and people were talking about this doctor who can figure out people's problems just from their walk. And then all of a sudden, the invitations came in from all over the world to teach people how to do this. And since then, I've been invited to speak at 180 medical conferences, which is astounding considering these are all medical conferences by MDs. And then in 2015, I was awarded an honorary degree from a member of the royal family for my contribution to teaching people how the body works as an integrated spring and how to evaluate people by their gait pattern and treat them properly, because you get more from watching them walk about how to treat the patient to restore the walking pattern. Because even subtle abnormal mechanics, Michele, if you take 10,000 steps per day, if you multiply that by 365 days a year, that's 3,650,000 steps that we take a year. So by the time you're 30 years old, you've taken 90 million steps, or almost 100 million steps, with just even subtle mechanics, flaws in the body, mechanics, movement, walking. You can have a significant amount of damage to the knee joints, the hip joints, and of course, inflammation creates a secondary effect of damage to the brain cells, the cells of the arteries, to create atherosclerosis and more susceptibility to heart attack and stroke and depression. So what I didn't know about Anthony was that he was suffering from severe clinical depression, and he had an addiction to very strong painkillers, and it wasn't stopping. It kept increasing the dose, and he was suicidal. So here, the tour manager didn't explain to me how severe the situation was. I have a man who's thinking that killing himself was probably better for everyone, sort of like, that's a bad scene, okay? So what I wanted to do was immediately get some relief that kind of was the wow factor. So he said, well, maybe this guy's going to be able to help me, and I can cruise through the rest of the weekend and really do some good work. So I put this like kind of a massage device on his legs and his feet. It's a powerful massage device, but it's in a larger, more professional model. I just developed this massager called the Vibassage. Okay, it's affordable for everyone. It's, affordable and portable.
Right.
But the unit I used on him before, you've seen it before. It's a $1,500 professional model that is a stand-up model. And I put it on for about an hour. Then I rolled right into a 4-hour treatment of his legs. And then when then a guy came over and he says, "Hey, Anthony, it's time for the show. You got to get ready for the show." But I didn't crack him. You know why? I did it on purpose, Michele. I was like, look, man, what I'm going to do is I'm going to release all the tension from your feet, your calf, your thigh, and your hip. And then when you get up, the spring will be restored, and then your back is going to fall into place on its own because it stacks up on the rest of the bones. You got to think like an engineer, Michele. You can't think like a doctor, because they take an MRI scan and they stare at it, and then they never look at the floors beneath, and they make huge mistakes when they do that. Okay.
Right.
So when you restore the spring system from the bottom, boom, it all shakes out, falls into place. And that's exactly what happened.
How long did it take to bring him to health?
Okay, you've got to remember, when he got up off the table, he goes, wait a minute, thank you very much for all that treatment. He had a kind of aggravated look on his face because I didn't crack him, and he wanted that. And he's the boss, okay? And he goes, wait a minute, my back pain is completely gone. What happened? And I go, I told you. If you just do it the right way, it'll all go away and stay away. And he goes, don't you go anywhere. Because then I treated him for 20 hours after that, because I needed to treat his shoulders, his elbows. I mean, everything was inflamed. And what was happening, Michele, was what people need to know. This is so important. The inflammation, you see, like if you put a tea bag in the hot water, the tea is going to flow out like when it's steeping. And then the glass of water will be, like coffee, it'll be, completely opaque and evenly distributed tea particles in the hot water. When you have inflammation flows to the empty space. So the longer you leave it go, it keeps soaking tissues and expanding throughout your body the same way, like with putting a tea bag in the hot water. So with him, his multiple joint inflammation, it flowed up toward his brain, and also his gut was inflamed. So you have this gut axis to the brain that communicates with the brain. And what happened was the inflammation took the tryptophan. Tryptophan is used for production of serotonin,
Right.
melatonin. It took the tryptophan and stole it away from the production of serotonin down on a pathway called the IDO pathway that creates kinaurine, quinolytic acid, and glutamate.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all toxic to the brain, these three chemicals.
Exactly.
And now let's say you needed, 10 grams of tryptophan, or just kind of an example, to make enough serotonin to be happy and sleep and, have a wonderful hormone balance. But what you've done is you've taken it down a different pathway. You say, I know you need the tryptophan, but I'm going to take it away for something else. So as a result, you have lower serotonin, you are depressed. Okay. Well, the drug companies, what you have is this interface between two nerves, and the serotonin crosses from one nerve to another. And then it doubles back and it gets recycled back to the original nerve through what we call reuptake. And the drug companies, they make a drug like Zoloft or whatever that blocks the reuptake so that the serotonin, when it crosses over, it stays over there. Right. But what is so crazy is that the drug companies in Europe say, well, what we're going to do is make our drug bring the serotonin back faster. So both of them do the opposite of what each one does. And they both are FDA approved in their, countries or their nations. But, do they really work? Well, if you still have ongoing inflammation drop in the tryptophan levels, you're just playing around with what level of serotonin is left, and you're always depleted. So nobody ever gets better. So you're better off attacking it from the inflammation side, which is what I did with this powerful vibrating massager all over his body. Then we even put it on his stomach, and then we fixed his diet. And he literally came out of depression in like a week, Michele. He was suicidal in like a week.
Did he stop taking his antidepressants because of that?
Well, what happens is they're so afraid to come off them. And then I'm a chiropractor, so I don't tell you, look, you need to come off your antidepressants because that's not in my scope.
Right.
I'm very careful about that. Okay.
Right. Yeah, because
so I told him, work with your doctor.
Yeah, you cannot write prescriptions, right?
You not only can you not write prescriptions, but you don't really want to.
Yeah.
And also, if they're already on a script, you don't play around with that. You tell them that go to your doctor and tell them that you're better with your depression and see if you can start backing the dose off. Because you know what? Look, Michele, I'm up until 2:00 in the morning. Here's what happened. When the book came out, How I Got My Wiggle Back, okay? Anthony got on the Today Show and told everybody in Australia on the Today Show that this chiropractor cured his depression. I was like, oh God, the onslaught. For sure, I'm going to get like hammered somehow by somebody, right?
Right.
Sure enough, the doctors were all calling in to this guy, Bill Anton's office. He's the head of the Academy of Anti-Aging in Australia. And what's ironic about this, Michele, was that Bill Anton was the head of the Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine in Australia. And he was the one that gave the lecture in Indonesia, Bali. And I was sitting in the front row, and he said, inflammation can be tested in our laboratory, Path Labs. And inflammation is linked to depression. Actually, doctors think it's the cause of depression. And I'm going like this, racking my brain like, wow, every one of my patients have massive inflammation, some chronic, even around the shoulders, close to the brain. This is really something I need to focus on. So I'm taking all these notes, and then I go into the research, and I find out about all this. And then poof, Anthony Field walks into the scene. I fix him. Then he gets on the Today Show. So they're called up, and Bill says, look, Dr. Stoxen is on point. They're like, hey, who is this chiropractor? He's talking about curing, depression with chiropractic. And Bill's like, hey, Dr. Stoxen's on point. I was the one that taught him that in a year ago in Indonesia at the Asian Pacific Anti-Aging Conference. And, the literature is clear that inflammation, like if you get a bad cold, Michele, number one, you don't want to go anywhere. You don't want to do anything. You have no ambition. Your brain doesn't work so well. The memory is kind of, you're in a funk,
Mm-hmm.
and but you're coming out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's the inflammation's effect on the brain. It's a chemical like affects your brain function,
Right.
like cocaine,
Right.
like alcohol, okay? Like a upset stomach,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, affects the brain. Chemicals affect the brain, Michelle. Drugs affect the brain. You get dizzy.
Exactly.
You get, vertigo from drugs. Chemicals affect the brain. Inflammation is a chemical that gets in the brain and affects the function. So when you're looking at inflammation, there's like 4,500 studies. Okay, I had a lawyer. So just to go back to that, Bill said, look, if you want to talk to Dr. Stoxen, we invited him as a keynote speaker for our national convention. Oh, you should have heard him. I said, what did they say about that? Oh, they're coming, doctor. So you better have every single slide backed up with a peer-reviewed journal article, because they're going to hammer you. It's a possibility. And you know what happened? Nobody said a word. In fact, they were very excited to hear the talk afterwards. And I had a group of doctors around me get my business card for more information. And one doctor who is the head of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's research, he said, you just opened my eye and you blew my mind. He said, I never even thought of musculoskeletal inflammation as a contributing factor to depression and the aging effects of inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I thought about, like, I was giving people turmeric. What am I thinking? If a person has a bad gait, every step they take keeps cranking out more and more toxic inflammation into the body. Our treatments are just going to be like paddling upstream. We're never going to get anywhere unless we focus on all sources of inflammation and have a game plan to drop them. Because you know what, even if you're trying to do HRT, hormone replacement therapy,
Right.
inflammation throws that off too.
Right.
So how can you really help someone with HRT when they're not even healthy? It doesn't work.
Right. It's like, James, you're throwing away your money if you don't look at the body as a whole, and you're, focused on one of the most pervasive and invasive conditions that people experience in life, and that is, with a capital I, inflammation. I can remember I worked as an advisor with Dr. Barry Sears and
Right.
Dr. Stephen Sinatra. And they were putting together, many people know Barry Sears as the Zone, and the Zone protocol was based on inflammation and curing it. And he was one of the first, and he was laughed out of the, by the time you came along, it was a far more accepted concept. You still had to, convince people that it was dealing with other parts of the body, but, that would contribute to that, because the body is an integrated functioning situation. But when he came out with it, he promoted the fish oils, the EPA and the DPA, and so he was the first. But I tell you, I remember
ultra refined fish oil.
So say that again.
He actually came out with ultra refined fish oil.
Right. Yeah. Well, he had to be careful because of mercury, and that you might be doing more harm than good by taking fish oils that were tainted. So there was that whole issue too. But my point is that, you're many years later, and there's still all this confusion and questions about the effect of inflammation. Well, take a moment and tell us about your most incredible machine. And I hope today that we can take a moment too to talk about how our viewers could purchase that machine. So why don't you talk about the two modalities, the big one that is used by people who have one in their home that's more professional use, and the smaller one that's portable that you just invented that more people will probably want because they can take it with them.
Yes.
So can you talk for a moment about why does this machine work, and what are the details, the specifications around its efficacy, as well as how one could purchase it?
Okay, for example, let's say, for instance, with Anthony, let's say that you have your arch collapse on one side because of weakness in the spring suspension system of the foot. The entire leg will, when it lands, the whole leg will twist and create strain on the muscles. And of course, the strain will damage muscle fibers, and that inflammation will start pouring out like a factory. It's like, to me, like if you have a shoulder pain, inflammation, it would be like a factory sitting next to a beautiful, beautiful river, fresh water, throwing off like toxic waste into the river, and then it flows out, through simple diffusion or a lake, and then the whole lake is affected. Kind of, it would be similar to that nuclear reactor in Japan that melted down, and then the ocean water carried all this nuclear waste to the California coast and polluted our fish. Same thing with the human body. No matter where the inflammation is, it will flow. And so when you have someone who's been chronic, months or years, the inflammation is all over the body. So to try to do that by hand with your hands, obviously, if it keeps being produced because the shoulder mechanics aren't right, you have to fix the shoulder mechanics, but then it's still soaking the tissues. So how does it leave the tissues? Like, pills don't help. You have to move it out, okay? Here's another thing. Let's say you get deep tissue on the shoulder and you pressure point the muscles that are painful and move the inflammation out of the muscle. What it does is it goes between the muscle and the skin in a space called the interstitial space, which is, by the way, where all your lymphatic drainage pipes are. And by the way, again, your lymphatic system drains out the body that pulls all these toxic waste and the microorganisms and all, and it moves 3 quarts of lymph fluid through your body a day. 3 quarts of lymph fluid a day, Michelle, goes through the lymph system. But, when you're not moving much and you're full of inflammation, this lymph system becomes stagnant. And so you've got to stir it up. So what we have here, the big one's in the other room. So, but this one, what you have is, I took the big motor out of the large unit, the professional unit that's used by doctors, and I made this amazing, handheld, very solid unit that has a wide applicator pad. And so what you have is a machine that vibrates at 3,200 RPMs. And according to research, that's the perfect level of vibration. Now, what you can do, it's got a simple dial on here, which is very easy to use. And what you can do is you can dial it down and use it for like getting phlegm out of the lungs when you have like a bronchitis or something like that. But also you can put a softer pad on that has air filled, and you can actually put it right on the face. So if you have a real bad TMJ, everyone knows that there's 17 muscles that affect the opening and closure of the jaw. And if you have a abnormal movement pattern in the jaw, that inflammation is so close to the brain, it's like you got a cold and it shuts your brain down. Not shut it down literally, but it makes you have brain fog and then feelings of depression, anxiety, even bipolar syndrome is linked to high levels of inflammation. So I had a lady that came in, she's 92 years old. She said, I got trigeminal neuralgia. I said, let me look at it. How do you get the diagnosis? She said, I got this terrible facial pain. And the doctor says, wait a minute. Don't say another word. You've got trigeminal neuralgia. That's the exam? I said, are you kidding me? So I did a careful exam, found out it was a TMJ because she had all her teeth removed for a plate, for dentures. And so I put this on her jaw and it got in there. And within 5 minutes, literally, the pain was gone. And then I have a new nickname. Look at that, Michelle. Look at that. It was like 3 minutes. Look at the redness. Look at this side. Now the difference here.
Exactly.
How white that is.
So that's good it's good for cosmetics as well.
Look at that.
You can tighten
how red that is. And see the difference?
And does it stimulate collagen and elastin and
right? Yeah. So we have a soft pad that we put on there, And you could put exfoliating cream right on the pad, Michelle,
Uh-huh.
right on the pad and on the skin of the chest. And you can literally, like exfoliate the skin off of your chest if you're wearing like a evening gown or you're
Right.
wearing like a cocktail dress. You want
Right.
to get the skin looking, smooth and shiny. And you can get the massage to get the inflammation out of the deep muscles that are underneath the skin, because the inflammation from within seeps into the skin and ages the skin.
Right.
Okay. So you can vibrate the muscles underneath to get the inflammation out in the deeper tissues. Feels fantastic. And then you can exfoliate the skin at the same time. So this
So,
is what is great about this
so
machine.
how much
Also,
how
it's
much
got
does
a
it
round,
cost?
it's got this round, see how it's got this round side to it?
Yes.
So what you do is you know those massage guns?
Yeah.
Did you ever see the people when they put them on the people? Like when the guy's like, hey, let me show you how the massage gun works. And the people are like this.
Right.
The massage gun got a piece of plastic, real like your finger.
Right.
And it like
Right.
it like jackhammers your muscle.
Right.
And if it's inflamed, it's got to make it worse. I was going to add a massage gun to my line and have a massage gun, have the Vibrasage, have the massage assist, the big unit. And I'm like, try this thing out. I'm like, no way I'm putting a massage gun in my line.
It's too
it's
too invasive, right? That and yours is much more ergonomic.
Well, it smooths out the vibration, smooth and comfortable, so that it feels good. And also, here's another thing that we use it for. See, if you get a massage gun and you pound like this muscle right here, what happens, Michelle, is it kicks all that inflammation out. And then it just sits there.
Yeah.
You got to move that away. So what you do with this is you flip it on, okay, and you have it on an angle, and you literally plow the inflammation away from the area. And now in this case, I would plow it this way towards the lymphatic drainage point, which is in the underarm, and the other lymphatic drainage points in the legs are in the groin area. So you would move the inflammation like a plow, and you would physically, because the interstitial fluid is literally, it's like a fluid underneath the skin that actually flows. That's why you can plow that inflammation out of the area, because if you don't, Michelle, it just seeps right back in the muscle again.
Exactly.
And you got to do it again. It's just, deep tissue is effective, but you have to follow it up by pushing the inflammation away from the area so it doesn't keep affecting the muscle again. Like, okay, you moved it out of the muscle, it just sits there and it just flows back in. It's ineffective to leave it there. You've got to get it out and stimulate that lymphatic drainage. And also, when you move the machine across the muscle, right, you create a vacuum effect, and that's why you bring blood into the area.
Right.
Now, what's good about blood, Michelle? It's about oxygen and nutrients, and also if I have a muscle that's in a spasm here, and it's like that 24 hours a day, like your neck is stiff every day. That's a constant contraction that goes from, like, aerobic would be reps of 10, then you set the weight down, and then the blood flows back in, and oxygen, nutrients, and then you got more energy to do set number 2. That's aerobic. If a muscle contracts constantly, it's anaerobic, and it throws all that lactic acid into your system. And that's because there's no oxygen anymore, because after about 2 or 3 minutes of contraction, it used up all the oxygen, and now it goes into this depleted oxygen mode, but it throws a ton of lactic acid into the system and acidifies your body. And we know about alkaline water and about how our body acid-base balance is so important. So people who have chronic pain, their body is acidic. So when we start pushing that oxygen into the cells of the muscles, then it shuts off the production of lactic acid. it brings the acid base balance back up to hopefully 7.4, and the neurotransmitters work better. In other words, like when you run too far, if you haven't run for a long time, the capillaries will recede from the area because they're no longer needed. Okay, like you grow capillaries into an area because you're exercising more, and the body knows that we need more drainage or we need more supply. Right. So it goes through adaptation, and it grows these arterioles, and it feeds the area with more blood because it knows that it's needed for this growth when you're getting stronger, or you're, that kind of thing. You're doing aerobics. So when you first start exercising, you are stiff everywhere because of lactic acid. The body's acidic. And when your body's acidic, the people think that the nerve is attached to the muscle, and it zaps it with electricity. It's kind of like some kind of electrical experiment. But in reality, when the electrical potential hits the nerve, it opens chambers that release acetylcholine splashing on top of the muscle, and that's how the contraction occurs.
And how does the drainage occur? Like once you can clear the interstitial lymphatic drainage, where does it go? How does it get out of the body?
The body has it's an amazing thing. The human body has the ability to take some chemicals and reuse them by, some chemical reactions, that we can take this chemical and attach another oxygen atom or whatever, and it will turn it into other useful chemicals that will be used for energy. And then a lot of when it goes into the lymphatic system cleans it, and right here, the long thoracic duct, after it's cleansed, it goes into the artery at the base of the where the carotid,
right,
and
the carotid artery,
right in this corner,
right.
The one long thoracic duct on the right side only puts those fluids, those 3 quarts of fluid, back in the body, so that you don't lose 3 quarts of fluid and dehydrated in an hour.
Right.
And it puts it back in through this long thoracic duct on the right side.
Right.
And then it goes through the circulatory system, and it cleans it through the kidneys.
So,
and you urinate it out.
So what I want you to do is take a moment and tell us, I know you said you were offering a special consideration for our viewers and listeners today, and we'll, obviously incentivize them to try this, because this is a very exciting development. And I don't think there's anything like this that's this efficacious on the market today. So what's the name of the machine? How can they buy it? And what kind of price point would you offer to our viewers, and with shipping and so forth, and involved in all this?
Okay, now if it's the unit retails at $349, and so for your viewers, I will give them a $50 discount at $299.
Ooh.
No tax.
Wow.
Okay, and I'll ship it out to them in continental U.S.
Oh, wow.
And internationally, we'll have to negotiate that.
Right.
So the tax would normally be another $34.
Right.
Plus I took 50 off. So
right.
that's
so it's about $100 discount all in, with the shipping included.
California is the minimum $27. So
yeah, for sure.
There's $100 discount off the normal retail plus tax.
So how would they order? I know that I can already tell you're going to have orders. Let's just assume that you're going to need to process those orders. So if they say they saw you on Ageless and Timeless, or Michele.
The best way to do that, Michele, is to have them email me at teamdoctors@aol.com.
Oh, say that again, James.
TEAM doctors, teamdoctors@aol.com.
Okay, team doctors, and spell out doctors.
Yes, at
AOL.com, and they email you and they tell you they are one of our viewers, and then they want to order one or whatever more of the and what's the name? What do you call it?
Vibressage, V-I-B-E.
V-I-B-R-E.
V-I-B-E.
Oh, V-I-V-E. Ah, okay. Okay, got it. I see it
Vibressage.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, Vibressage I couldn't use, Michelle.
Yeah. So
You know why?
because we're running out of time, is there any way, if anyone wants to come and see you in Chicago? I know you travel all over, but Chicago is your headquarters, your flagship. And there are people that may be traveling through there or actually live there or live nearby. How, again, do they email you
Yeah.
and set up an appointment with your office?
Well, you remember that time when I wasn't in the office from December 15th until May, like 6 months?
Right. You were out treating all your VIP celebrity clients in Bangkok and you're in Germany. I remember you
Okay,
traveled
so
all over, but you were treating people day in and day out on those trips. But your office was somewhat
oh,
inactive because you weren't there.
no, it was completely closed for 6
Completely
months.
closed. Okay. So
Doctors were what I'm saying, Michelle, is that if somebody wants, they can have me treat them in their living room anywhere
exactly.
in the world,
Right.
or they can take me on vacation with them.
Right.
Everything's priced, Michelle. You know that, right?
Right, I know that. You came to Aspen for 3 or 4 days, so I do remember that. But some people, obviously that's an expensive proposition. However, people who can afford that, that would be an absolute luxury to have you come to them. And
But
then,
can we explain to the people that the treatment is not like an hour or two? The
yeah,
treatment
well,
is like 9 hours
yeah, well, I
a
think I
day,
said
one
that.
person.
I think I explained that at the beginning in my own case. So it was 2 hours turned into 2 days. Well, because we're running out of time, I want to be sure that that we have covered your book. So real quickly, tell us, and you only have 1 minute to do it. So tell us if you can show us a copy of the book. And anyone that wants to go on Amazon, I guess is where the book is being sold
Okay.
amongst other places. So yeah,
Okay.
just hold it
Now,
up for us because we're gonna. I wish we had more time, but if you, yeah, there we go. Human spring approach, thoracic outlet syndrome. Okay, I'm giving you 60 seconds to tell us what thoracic outlet syndrome is, so people will know what they're ordering if they want to get your book.
okay. Everybody says the body's a lever system. I said it's a lever system and a spring mechanism, and that's what I got the honorary degree for. So this is
Okay.
the first book, and it's about thoracic outlet. This is the shoulder, and that's the rib cage.
Right.
This is the roof of the tunnel or the outlet. This is the floor of the tunnel, and the nerves and the blood vessels have to go through this tunnel. When you use the cell phone too much, like this, or if
Yeah.
you're on the computer like this all the time,
Yeah.
muscles get so tight that it squeezes down on the shoulders, cause that pain like back here, right here,
Right.
and then your pinky and your ring finger go numb, and your
Yeah.
hand gets cold, and it's like you don't know what's going on, and you didn't have an injury, so it's got to be something that grew over time, and that's called thoracic outlet syndrome. And thoracic outlet syndrome is becoming very, very common because people are on the cell phone too much, Michelle. They're on the phone all day. And it's creating all kinds of neck and shoulder problems. It's really bad, especially with kids. And it's getting real because what they do with thoracic outlet syndrome is they make an incision here and they take a device like a pruning shears and they cut your rib out here, and they cut the muscles out that attach to it to open up this outlet to let the blood flow through.
Okay.
Well, I do it with, it's a muscle spasm. Why do you have to cut the rib out? I do it with deep tissue treatments,
right,
with this powerful massager, which really ramps up the treatment fast.
Right.
And then they go away. It takes about 30 hours of work, though, on these really tough cases, Michelle.
Right.
I can't help it. I mean, I'm working constantly. The body decides when it wants to let go. And some of these cases are really severe. And that's the kind of cases I love. I specialize in those severe cases.
James, I am so sorry because we could talk for hours, and I knew that when I invited you to come on the podcast. So I think we'll have to have you come back in another session because there's so much to talk about. But unfortunately, we have time is up. And so I want to just say thank you so much for today and sharing so much information and so much of your passion with our viewers. I know people will be contacting you about setting up either appointments or ordering your vibra massage or your book. So I believe that you've done an amazing job of helping to heal people, and you should be very proud of yourself. So thank you for joining us, and we're going to schedule another time with you, if you don't mind.
Of course. That would be
Okay.
great.
Thanks, James. Take care. Well, I'm kind of breathless right now because we've learned so much. And, you know, I always say I learn more from my guests than I can ever hope to teach. But it is my goal to both teach and to absorb information that I can share with all of you, because that is part of Ageless and Timeless. In fact, it is the major part of Ageless and Timeless, which is lifelong learning. And also, of course, growth and opportunity to be the best version of ourselves. So you've had a treat today with Dr. James Stoxen. Please check him out. He's on certainly on Google. If you Google his name, or Team Doctors is the name of his company. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask me, please contact me. I think everything is on my website, agelessandtimeless.com. This is Michele Hughes signing off, and have a beautiful day.